guess what time it is?
What time is it?
Ray, you're that's for the listeners, not you.
Oh, I'm listening.
Oh. Well, you know what? This is actually just another episode of You're Just Stupid, the podcast that makes you smarter and dumber. As you guys can tell, Ray is definitely getting dumber and dumber by the episode. And I don't think I've learned anything at all. So, just to remind y'all who we are, in case you've forgotten by now, I am Rene, aka Harder Daddy, and this is Ray's just lost it. Ray's just done for the night.
Have you ever had a woman say that to you?
I'm going to plead the fifth on this one. And this is Ray, aka Sweaty Beaver. And this episode has already gone off the rails. And
I've had a guy yell that at me, so...
You had a guy yell that at you.
Sweaty Beaver.
Oh, I thought you were saying Harder Daddy.
Oh, that too. I request it.
She likes to peg men. Anyways, So Ray, now that we finished talking about
we are going to be talking about beavers today. So
we actually are. That's actually relevant.
No, we're not at all. I didn't make my AKA relevant whatsoever. No, so
neither did I. Well, because I don't even know what we're talking about.
You know, I'm going to jump right into it. Why not?
Let's jump in head first. You know what? Let's go into it hard.
So Rene, today we are talking about the Richard III.
Oh, the play. Nice.
The play. There we go. I love it. I love how that's the first thing that comes in your mind. I'm guessing, right? When you think of Richard III as the play.
That's why I said it.
Okay, well, there you go. Do you know anything else about Richard III?
Actually, so random tangent. One day I went on you ever go on a weird Wikipedia dive?
Always. That or Reddit.
Wikipedia, Reddit, or TV trope dives are like three of my favorite time wasters. So I went one time about the War of the Roses because I'm like, I don't know anything about this and I feel like it's a big deal.
It is.
And turns out I learned a little bit about Richard III, but I don't know a lot other than...
He played a big part.
Yeah. And the Shakespearean play was most likely propaganda.
Sure, yes. So what Rene is talking about is...
Ooh, I know something.
He does. Oh my god, he's got paint all over his hands and body because he's been painting his new house. So he just went up and did a Mr. Burns move with his hand just covered in paint. Oh my god, there's so much paint on your hand.
There's a lot
Rene.
of paint on me. There's
a
lot of paint.
It looks like you were a bird wiping your ass.
I will neither confirm nor deny if my shit is white like a bird's, and so I'm covered in white paint, guys, and I will neither confirm nor deny that my paint is my poop is actually white, and I basically poop as I walk around.
Can we do an episode on that? Why birds poop is white?
Why haven't we done an episode on that?
I don't know. A bird shit on my friend when we were in Sri Lanka and we were in a really busy area and she couldn't right on her shoulder.
They were aiming for y'all because they knew y'all were tourists.
They absolutely did. But yeah, Richard III. So what Rene is talking about is there is this Shakespearean play that's called Richard III, creatively enough, and it's about him, presumably, and about his time during the War of the Roses. Now, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later because it's very important, because kind of what I want to focus on this episode is talking about how Richard III was perceived throughout time and then how that has changed since his exhumation, which we're going to talk about as well this episode. Ooh. Good exhumation episode.
Ooh, about time we haven't had enough of those.
Well, we do a lot of really weird, cringy stuff.
Oh, well, that's because you and I are really weird and cringy.
Yes, exactly.
Like our podcast could have been called Weird and Cringy. Two idiots who are weird and cringy.
So Richard III, I first heard of him in 2013 when his body was found in Leicester, England. And the reason I heard of it was because my father is a big documentary news PBS guy. He watched a documentary. I'm
actually going to change the story real quick and say your father found Richard III's body.
My father.
It's a way more interesting story.
My dad's not the type of dad to do that. He would probably yell at other people on how to find it.
He is now. He found it. It was a Raiders of the Ark like thing, and there was Nazis, and he killed them.
You know, awesome. He looks like Harrison Ford, so that's perfect.
Ooh.
Yeah, our dad.
Our dad.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad.
So he was telling me.
Sorry, I haven't bought you a Father's Day present ever.
so he was. It's okay. Neither have I. AKA disappointing daughter.
AKA hashtag disappointing daughter. Hey guys, on the Twitter, yell at Ray and say she's a disappointing daughter.
My dad will too, if he had a Twitter.
Please.
Anyway, so my dad was watching this documentary about Richard III because he had just got unearthed. And so, and I was, very into history. So that kind of sparked my interest with him. I watched this episode. So now, like, this documentary, that was a 2014 documentary now, like 8 years ago. And I haven't watched it since. I found it again on YouTube. I rewatched it. And we're going to talk about it a little bit. The one thing I really want to focus on is I did a lot of research on Richard III. And there's a lot on him. He's an English monarch. He was the last English king to die in battle, which is really significant. And
which is also something too, because he died in the 1400s, right?
Yeah, 1485. I have it up
Yeah,
there.
so that's a long time.
Yeah.
England's fought a lot of wars since then.
Well, I think since then and how brutally he was murdered, we have found that they kind of were like, ooh, like the monarchs afterwards were like, oh, maybe we'll stay in the back a little bit.
We'll leave from the back. That's my monarch voice.
But since his exhumation, like, we have learned so much about him.
Question.
Yeah.
How big was his girth?
It's not really a bone.
How big was what?
Like, it's not really a bone. You're not going to find his penis.
You know what, guys? I'm sorry. If you want to skip to the next episode now, that's fine. I get it. Guys, this has been a great episode. Rene signing off. Love you guys. Okay, anyways, let's just keep going. Sorry, Ray.
I get really annoyed when people tell me that they don't like history. And after doing a lot of research on Richard III, I kind of understand why. It's because it's very confusing. Everyone has the same fucking name, and it's the third and the second. And, like James the First of Scotland was, James the Fourth of England. It's the same person. And then it's just constantly, people with the same names over and over and over again.
Well, then the other thing, too, I've discovered as I've been listening to history is that a lot of times when we find out the fact, it's usually less grandiose than the legend. Like, for example, was Rome founded by Romulus and Remus? Probably not. But it's way more cool to have, like, twin brothers who were raised by a she-wolf found this city, rather than what actually probably happened where a bunch of people just settled down and they had, like, a chieftain maybe named Romulus and, all sorts of other stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, the legend is always more interesting than the myth. Like, in 200 years from now, is it going to be Washington single-handedly defeated the British by himself while he dug the Delaware River himself?
He had artificial nails as well the whole time.
He also saved the children, but not the British children.
He purposely drowned all of them.
Purposely.
Revisionist history. That's what we're talking about today.
Correct.
Yes. Anyway, so I'm going to try to talk about this topic in a very simple way. So we're going to have, reminder links in all the show notes if you want like a lot more information. But I want to try to explain this in a way that is interesting to people.
Because she realizes most of y'all are really, really dumb and have the attention spans of like, oh shit, sorry, my bad. No, y'all are very smart and intelligent, and we're only doing this in case like a first grader wants to listen to our podcast.
I just think it's less relatable to like have it so dry, and then it makes it interesting and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So in Shakespeare's Richard III, which is a very famous play, and I don't need to talk about who Shakespeare is. I'm just going to read
My Kingdom for a Horse.
Whores.
My Kingdom for a Whore.
I'm going to read the prognosis, the summary of Richard III, the play that was on what's that theater's called? The Globe Theater's website in England. Yes, where Shakespeare. Okay, so this is the summary of the play. Jealous and crippled, Richard of Gloucester, Richard III, wants to be King of England and uses manipulation and deceit to achieve his goal. He murders his brothers, nephews, and any opposition to become King Richard III. In the end, Henry of Richmond raises an army, kills Richard in battle, and becomes King Henry VII.
Ooh, that is... You know what? I'm in. I'm in, guys.
That's pretty much all you need to know. It's just...
I'm in.
Basically, let's talk about it real quick. The beef. Very simply, this is what the story of Richard is about and what he is famous for. Battle of Bosworth, which is one of the battles that ended the War of the Roses that went on 100 years between two families. It went on between two families that were fighting for the crown. Simple. Richard dies in this battle, and no one knows what happened to him after that. No one knows where his body went. No one knows. He's now the losing side of the battle.
Right. He's from the House of York.
Yes, correct.
Who
He's
lost?
from the House of York, where they have that northern English accent. Richard III dies. He's the loser. Now the Tudors, Henry Tudor is king, and we all have heard of the Tudors, right?
The Tudor dynasty.
Tudor dynasty, very, very popular. So Richard dying is a really big fucking deal, and he is the enemy. So history is written by the victors, right? We see that constantly.
Very, very common.
Right. So he's going to be portrayed in ways that are maybe not so true because we want to kind of portray him in a bad way.
Right.
For example, in Shakespeare's Richard III, Shakespeare, he had a humped back. He was like a Quasimodo.
And it kind of makes sense too, because a lot of play rights back then. Just I don't want to go too big into Shakespeare, but I actually know a little bit about this because I took theater classes and stuff.
Oh, you did?
And yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, seriously. And I love Shakespeare. So a lot of the big playwrights, they would have patrons back then as a way to fund their work. And it's widely believed that basically some of Shakespeare's patrons were in fact the crown, like King Edward, Queen Elizabeth, all that. And so there's a good chance that, because remember, they are the Tudor family, they would have hated Richard III. And this was a propaganda piece by like the Tudor family to make any remnants of the House of York or allies look like shit. Yeah, like you said, humpback and all that.
Right. But if we don't have his body, how do we know if it's bullshit? Like, how do we know if it's, we don't. We have no way of knowing. We just have what we have for evidence.
And if he's already been dead 60, 80 years, no one's going to remember what exactly he looked like.
No one knows. And they just have like paintings of him, which... So he had a humped back in the play. It was also said that he was born with shoulder-length hair, which is atrocious.
I was going to say, considering you have long hair and I have longer hair for a man, how dare they?
Well, I mean, like, that coming out of you. Anyway. And apparently his
were you born with it? Yeah, that's gross.
And apparently his mom was pregnant with him for 2 years, which is not true. Everyone who's listening, that's not possible.
What? But what would that even be like an accusation of? Like she's a witch or he's a witch?
Mary Tudor, who unrelated, but Mary Tudor, she died of what they think is like a stomach tumor because she thought she was, this isn't funny at all, I shouldn't be laughing. She thought she had a stomach tumor, or she thought she was pregnant and being a stomach tumor.
Yeah, no, I've heard about that.
Yeah.
There's women who get that. They'll get like ovarian or stomach tumors and they think they're pregnant, but...
Oh, that's a sad conversation now. It's fine when we're talking about Bloody Mary, but... Yeah, so anyway, Richard III, we talked about Battle of Bosworth. Richard's the big fat loser. And I don't want to say that like he is a loser, because we don't really know a lot about him. I think I kind of like him after researching him a bit. But anyway, let's talk about the exhumation, because this is what we know from history about Richard, is that he was this awful, mean killer who wanted to be king and killed all these people, his brothers and his nephews, and didn't give a flying motherfuck.
Yeah,
and he's a
Humpty Dumpty over there.
And he's they said he was scrawny and little and blah, blah, blah. So 2013, they find him under a parking lot in Leicester, England. There's a whole lot of shit I could talk about.
Oh, the Jimmy Hoffa method.
The what method?
The Jimmy Hoffa. You never heard of him?
No. What is that?
Long story, he was he was like the leader of the Teamsters Union and was widely believed to have been killed by the mafia. He was like a well-known, like a kind of sort of affiliated member of the mafia. And the old story is that when they were building Giant Stadium at the time, they buried him underneath it. So they couldn't find him.
That's a smart idea. Jimmy Hoffa method.
This is a cement coffin.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So Richard III was buried in this parking lot for over 500 years. And it's amazing they found him. Have links of documentaries and ways that how they found him. We're not going to go into that, but very cool. Love archaeological stuff like that.
Yeah, when Ray's dad found him.
This is what we know now after he was exhumed and we do all these like modern cool tests on him. We know now how severe his wounds were. which I'm just bringing this up because when I was researching this issue, there's so many different routes I could turn because there's so many things that we learned from his body being found. But I just want to quickly say the severity of his wounds were highly abnormal. And I'm going to say that this is because, and I didn't think about this because I'm not a historian, but he had so many head wounds and so many like close range strike wounds and wounds that would have been, they said that he had wounds that only could have been inflicted while he was on his knees, which sounds like he's pretty much was like executed.
I was going to say they probably like grabbed him and like coup d'etat him or executed him. Yeah.
Right. He also was projected to win that battle because he had way more people at the battle than Henry Tudor's people. So they don't know if like they turned against him or...
I love a good underdog victory in battles. There's so many fun ones.
Yeah. So that's really interesting too. And they don't know if like Henry Tudor even knew that he was getting killed or was like even in the area. Who knows?
Out of curiosity, and this is something I've heard as I've been listening to other historical podcasts, and I don't mean to steal your thunder. Did he have any wounds in the back?
I don't remember. They didn't mention any wounds in the back. It was all like head area, I believe.
Oh, okay. So the old nomenclature, especially like in like the Roman world and like the ancient world, is that anyone who died with a wound in their back was basically killed by his own men, because either he was retreating or was like, that's why I asked, because like, either he was retreating or maybe, like you said, he was betrayed or something like that. And so
that I'm not sure. He would have been on a horse.
A whore, got it.
He would have been riding a whore. They didn't know that he like wasn't a cowardly dude at all, though. I have to say, like, who knows, like, he had no heirs. His life was pretty much over at this time in his life. He was old at the age of like 35.
Hey, shut up.
Well, that was pretty old back. I think he was 32.
There's nothing wrong with being in your mid 30s, guys, and not having children or a legacy or an heir or anything. And I'm not projecting like Henry's death onto my soon death. And shut up, Ray. Richard's, yeah, like, see, look, the dementia's sitting in.
Whole thing, and you can't remember.
The dementia's sitting in. I'm going, guys. I'll see y'all later.
You got paint on your fucking face, Rene.
Just let me die in peace, as I'm having an existential crisis. Keep talking while I
I just wanted to quickly sparkle on the fact that he was killed.
You see sparkle?
Yes, that he was.
Okay, existential crisis over.
Specks on your forehead remind me of sparkles. So I just wanted to go over that quickly, like how severely he was killed, because I think it's really interesting.
So he had multiple head wounds.
Yes.
Damn. So they beat the shit out of him basically before he died, is a long story short.
One thing that I'm really going to focus on.
I'm dead now because of it.
One thing I'm going to focus on is throughout history, they have painted a picture of Richard as still a very brave soldier and a good fighter. So they've kept that, even though they've said a bunch of shit about his hair and his mom being pregnant, whatever. So when they exhumed him, they found that he had very severe scoliosis, a huge curve in his back. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes. And thus asks us the question, that doesn't make sense. And thus...
Tis begs the question.
Begs the question, could he have been a soldier with this 80% bend scoliosis?
Oh, damn.
That is pretty fucking severe.
That's a pretty severe scoliosis,
yes. Yeah. Also, another question, tis prevails. Doesn't make sense. Why... No, I can't. I just look at your face.
Was it one of those things where it's like, oh, look, he's holding his sword. He's such a brave soldier. Good job, buddy. Good job, King Dick. Oh.
If he's got that severe scoliosis, like, how could he have fought?
He held the shield up today. Oh, good boy.
I know. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Like, he fed himself.
Let's get you some real armor and get you your own horse. Oh, which one? We wove you.
But Shakespeare said he was a hunchback. So is that where that kind of happened? Like, okay, so where is the line between truth and just like made up propaganda, like you were saying before? So they decided, some historians, cool people were like, we're going to fucking figure this out and see if he could have been a soldier. Radiologists make a 3D printout, whatever fucking thing of his spine to re-demonstrate his curvature.
You mean an MRI or CT scan?
No, like an actual 3D model.
Oh, they actually. Oh,
Yeah,
okay, cool.
they didn't just like, no, it wasn't just a picture. No, they,
Okay.
I'm not. No, they actually printed out a 3D model of it, and it's pretty,
Ooh.
you can see it, like pictures
I'm
online.
actually going to look this up right now.
It's very curved. It looks like it would be painful living with it day to day. If you saw a kid, if he had clothes on, you may not notice, but his shoulders may not be uneven. Like he might just look thin and nimble and awkward. Yeah, it looks very uncomfortable, doesn't it?
Oh, and like it's literally like his thoracic spine too. Like you could
It is.
see
It's his
like
thoracic spine.
oh
It's
damn.
thoracic spine, which is the mid of your back, has like
Yeah.
up to an 80%, 60 to 80% curvature is what they are assuming. And
Holy
I guess they
shit.
can't have a very like exact guesstimation of
Yeah.
the skeleton. I don't know.
Right. Like you probably just loosely put together. But yeah, guys, seriously, Google Richard III back and NPR has an image of this and that doesn't look comfortable. No. Ray's definitely very right on this one.
So, how do scientists or historians alike, whatever, how do they figure out if someone that was this disabled could have been in battle? Because a lot of historical recounts, like Richard in battle, like what the fuck?
I'm assuming they crippled a guy and looked to see if he could hold a sword and shield and ride a horse. Yeah, duh.
That's exactly what they just beat the shit out of a guy.
Exactly. Beat the shit out of a dude. Throw his ass
You
on
want
a
to be
horse
Richard
and
the
be
Third, motherfucker?
like, exactly. Put a crown on his head.
Consequently, this guy named Dominic Smee, he's 27-year-old, he saw Richard III get exhumated on TV. He's a Englishman, so he was big news and he saw it. He also saw a lecture that was done by Dr. Tobias Capwell. I've watched a couple of his lectures as well. He's a big armor guy, medieval armor guy, pretty
Nice.
awesome. But so Dominic Mee, he emails Dr. Capwell and is like, hey, dude, I have, pretty bad scoliosis. Like, you want to check out my back and see if you can help, use me in your research or whatever.
Nice.
And
So they didn't even need to cripple this guy. Badass.
another consequence, what I think this is so wild, is on the weekends, this kid, Dominic.
Holy shit.
What?
Sorry,
Oh.
sorry, real quick. I just looked up Richard III's
Yeah.
skull, and there's like multiple giant
Oh,
head
yeah.
wounds. Like giant fucking
Yeah,
head wounds.
they really did
Yeah.
a number on him. Yeah.
You know what, guys? Just look up Richard III's
Yeah.
skeleton, and holy shit, you're gonna be in for a time.
I would
Anyways,
recommend the
I'm sorry,
PBS
Ray, I interrupted.
documentary as well because it's just cool to see, right? Another consequence I'm going to bring up here is this guy Dominic with the scoliosis. He works at the Battle of Bosworth doing reenactments on the weekends.
What? What? He's like the perfect
I
guy
know.
to do this in.
And so, yes,
Wow.
so this kid Dominic, I think he's kind of cute. He's got this like straight red hair. He's pale English, cute.
Smash or pass?
I would smash him, but he
Nice.
is little and he's like very scrawny, tiny. And he does have, you notice when he walks that it's a little bit awkward, but like you wouldn't think that he has like a disability or anything. So they compare him with doing scans and stuff with Richard's back, and it's pretty much the same. Like it has that same thoracic bend in the same way.
Okay. So we have our modern day Richard III.
Modern day, that's literally what they're saying. Like, they just had so much fun with
Nice.
it. It's such a great documentary. So Dominic has a 70 to 75 degree curve. Richard has a 60 to 80. Okay. So now he's got a dude, we have a dude that has a spine that's virtually identical to Richard's. Okay. Now let's put him through a bunch of tests and see if someone like him could have been in battle, right? First, they check his range of motion. Not bad. Some parts he couldn't reach as well as others, as expected. Running test is where it kind of got bad. Because with his scoliosis and the way his back bent, he couldn't expand his lungs to its full capacity. So he definitely didn't have great endurance when he came to running. And I'm thinking this whole time, when I first saw this, I was like, oh my God, this guy totally is going to fail. Like, he's not going to, I had no faith in this guy.
Ray,
I don't know.
pessimistic
I did not
Ray.
think that he would be able to do it. I'm sorry, I'm such a cunt. Anyway.
Mega cunt.
Mega cunt. Oh,
That's
shoot
your new
that
nickname
cunt
for
with
the
a bazooka.
next episode.
So, and then they're teaching them, medieval combat, and they have like medieval combat experts like under the guy's name. So they're on there, and I'm like, you are fucking awesome. I wish I want to go on a date with one of those guys and just talk medieval combat the whole fucking time.
Right, dude? Like, we should do that, and then you and I duel, and then when you beat my ass, it would be fun.
Yeah, except for like, I'd be cleaning your flesh wounds.
Flesh wounds? I'd be dead.
And so they teach Dominic how to do like medieval training and sword fighting and whatever. And
he is the Game of Thrones.
So we know that Richard III would have been pretty trained in battle just because he was of nobility.
He's a king, yeah. And just slap him on the ass, give him a sword, and say, "Good job, buddy. Go get out there."
Slap him. Let's go kill those Tudors. Anyway,
go kill them Tudors. I don't know why they're going to talk like country folk now. Kill them Tudors.
That's exactly what 15th century English people sounded like.
English. That's exactly what they sound like.
So now they got to get friggin' Dom some armor. Dominic. They have no surviving armor from 15th century England. It just doesn't exist. There's never been any pieces found. So, it's a lot of it has to be speculation. We have to go by other countries and what they used and what we know of the time. A lot of armor was reused in their next century, so that's why a lot of it doesn't exist anymore.
Probably got like remelted
Correct.
And reused and gotcha.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So they worked with a Swedish armorer that is apparently really good, and they made Dom this suit that was like custom. When you look at him straight on while he's wearing the suit of armor, it looks like a very classic suit of armor. Very stereotypical.
Yeah, actually, I saw some pictures.
His shoulders do look uneven, so one looks higher than the other. So you can notice that. So that would be interesting for like the opposition to know, in history. That's exactly. Rene is showing me a picture. Yep, that's him. Does look a little bit funky.
Yeah, the Dominic Smee Armor Fund.
And the way they did it too is they kind of made it so the armor he rested his back where it turned on the armor, so almost like was a rest for him. So he didn't really say that it was a problem for him. It was complicated because armor tends to be symmetrical in nature, and like the back is not symmetrical on this dude, so it's just difficult.
So he definitely needs his own custom armor. Both this guy and Richard.
Right, it's 70 pounds of armor you got on you. You want to be comfortable with it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now they also have him ride a horse. They put this guy through the ringer. They do like 3 months of this thing.
Nice.
Like what a fun thing for him. I love it. So
I mean, it sounds awesome.
He's great.
It almost makes me wish I had scoliosis and was English.
just so I can be a Richard III documentary person. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so they have him ride a horse, which he never had done before. And they had him ride in a modern saddle, which is pretty bare bones. It's just kind of like, doesn't really cover anything. And he said it was very uncomfortable. He looked very awkward. He felt like he was sliding off, like going to the side. He felt like he was bouncing a lot. So as soon as that happened too, I remember when I first watched it, so I was like, that's it. Guy can't even fucking ride a horse. He's not going to be able to be in battle.
Well, here's old Cunt Ray throwing the salt on this guy.
And so then they put him on a medieval saddle, it looks like you are sitting on a log and you have like a lot of padding on the front and back of you. So you have a lot of rigid support. So when he did it, when Dominic wrote it, he had so much more structure, so he wasn't bouncing all over the place and he felt great. Yes, they have him do all of that. In the end, conclusion, Dominic did absolutely fine. So Richard III could have absolutely been in battle. So I was wrong as fuck.
You were way wrong. Oh yeah, the medieval saddle is interesting looking.
Yeah, it is.
And it definitely has a lot more support than I normally think of with a modern saddle.
There is a lot more support. So it makes sense with someone with scoliosis, would have, And it's also another thing too, is most people that, it's not that people don't have scoliosis anymore, it's most people get surgery to fix it, especially if it was as severe as Richard III. So the fact that Dominic had this condition and it wasn't fixed was pretty remarkable. And what a cool way to just put some actual real life skills to the test and apply them and relate them back to history and come up with a conclusion. Yes, he,
Why isn't Dominic king now?
That's what I'm saying. I would vote for him.
King Dominic. Hashtag
yes.
King Dominic 2024.
That would be great. Dominic King Smee. I can't talk anymore.
Yeah, the Smee dynasty. Yeah. King Dominic. Hashtag 2024. They have elections too for that shit, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Renee, what do you think? Do you think that, like, anything was true on, like, Shakespeare's...
Well, from what I've discovered a lot of times about history, what usually happens is they take maybe something that was slightly off. Like, for example, the Hunchback. Did he have a bad back? Yeah, obviously he did. But they took out of balance. He maybe have like a weird gestation. Maybe he went over 40 weeks, or maybe there was a complication during that. Yeah, but he probably was in his mother's womb for 2 years. So I'm thinking everything was exaggerated. And plus, not to mention, if I've learned anything about becoming like king or queen or emperor or empress, you gotta kill a lot of people along the way.
Oh, yeah. Everyone had blood on their hands. That's another thing. That's a good thing, too, that I wanted to point out, that I'm going to repeat probably several times through this podcast, is people, when they think of history, they think of people as either good people or bad people. And I think people need to remember that these were people. So they may be more bad or more good, but they're going to make bad and good decisions all through the way, especially if you're someone high on the list like a freaking king. You're going to kill a lot of people.
You're going to kill a lot of people. There's no, like, whenever you list anybody who's important, you know, whether it's antiquity, dark ages, Renaissance, even modern times, there's no one who's going to be purely good, purely evil. Hitler loved his dog. Hitler was against smoking.
You know why I know that Hitler loved his dog? From that Always Sunny episode. And they have that painting of Hitler's dog that he used to paint.
Guys, 90% of Ray's knowledge about history is from the
Simpsons, to be honest.
And The Simpsons.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I thought that one was pretty freaking interesting, honestly. Yeah. Richard III, look him up. There's so much about him. War of the Roses is so cool, and there's so much, like, drama.
I will say, I don't know if we could ever do an episode on the War of the Roses, because it would have to be like a multi-part.
I say we simplify it. Like, I've thought of doing, like, simple, like, World War I, World War II ones, where you, like, kind of simplify it, and then you can go on.
Exactly. Like, if we could do, like, a World War I in 30 minutes, a War of the Roses 30 minutes, or an hour, you know, depending on, you know, what we agree on. But that, if y'all are interested, let us know. But that does sound like it'd be something where, even though people have heard of these things, they may not know a lot. Especially, like, you ask people all the time, like, hey, what do you know about English history? Not a whole lot. Like, people have heard of Queen Elizabeth and Richard III, but don't know a whole lot about them.
We're making you smarter and stupider at the same time. And with that, Rene.
Exactly. Perfect exit.
That, Rene, I hope you all have a great day. And fuck off.
Fuck off.